Evil doesn't roar, it whispers. The most dangerous minds don't need noise to destroy you. They outsmart you in silence. Think about it. The loudest threats are often the weakest. Bluster and bravado collapse under scrutiny. But the quiet ones? They're the ones who slip through your defenses, striking before you even know you're a target. Today, we plunge into the dark psychology of villains, where silence isn't just a tactic, it's a weapon honed to perfection. We're pitting two of history's most formidable minds against each other. Sun Tzu, the ancient master of warcraft whose strategies toppled empires without a single shout, and Machiavelli, the Renaissance prince of treachery who turned manipulation into an art form. These aren't just dusty philosophers. They're the architects of evil's playbook, and their lessons echo in every shadow around you. What makes a villain truly terrifying isn't their cruelty, it's their cunning. It's the way they watch, wait, and weave their plans while you're distracted by the noise of everyday life. Sun Tzu taught that victory comes not from battle, but from breaking your enemy's will before they even draw a sword. Machiavelli understood that power isn't taken by force, it's stolen through the cracks of trust, one silent move at a time. Together they reveal a chilling truth. The people who outsmart you don't announce their intentions. They let you dig your own grave, smiling as you hand them the shovel. This isn't about cartoonish bad guys twirling mustaches. It's about the real villains in your world. The colleague who undermines you without a word, the friend whose quiet resentment festers, or the stranger who knows exactly how to play you. In the next 25 minutes, you'll uncover how these masters of silence and manipulation operate, how they turn your own mind against you, exploiting every doubt, every hesitation. You'll see how Sun Tzu's warcraft dismantles resistance with patience and precision, and how Machiavelli's treachery twists loyalty into a noose. But this isn't just a history lesson, it's a survival guide. By the end, you'll know how they win without a sound, and more importantly, how you can turn their game against them. Imagine flipping the script, spotting the silent threats before they strike, or even wielding their tactics to become untouchable. That's the ultimate edge waiting for you. Stay with me. This isn't about fear, it's about power. The power to see through the quiet, to understand the minds that thrive in the dark, and to rise above them. You've been outsmarted before, maybe by a lie you didn't catch, a move you didn't see coming. Not anymore. Smash like if you've ever been blindsided. Let's unravel this together and sharpen your instincts into something dangerous. What makes a villain formidable? It's not chaos, it's control. Silence is their weapon, fear their fuel. Picture this, the loud, brash tyrant stomping around, barking orders, waving fists. It's all noise, all distraction. They're easy to spot, easier to resist. Their power crumbles the moment you stop listening. But the true villain? The one who outsmarts you in silence? That's where the real danger lies. They don't need to shout to command a room. They don't even need to speak. They sit back, watching, calculating, letting the quiet do the work. It's not the roar of a lion that should scare you. It's the rustle of a snake you never hear until it's too late. This is the dark psychology of villains. A mind so sharp, so deliberate, it turns absence into dominance, stillness into terror. Villains aren't born from disorder. They thrive on precision. Chaos might be their playground, but control is their endgame. Think about the people who've blindsided you in life. The friend who betrayed you with a smile, the rival who climbed over you without a whisper of warning. What made them so effective wasn't their aggression, it was their restraint. Silence isn't just a lack of sound, it's a strategy, a tool sharper than any blade. It's the pause before the strike, the calm that lulls you into dropping your guard. And here's where the psychology kicks in. Silence exploits anticipation. Your brain hates the unknown. It's wired to fill gaps, to imagine threats where there's nothing to see. When someone goes quiet, your amygdala, the fear center, lights up like a warning flare. You start guessing, second-guessing, spinning scenarios. Did they mean that glance? Are they planning something? That dread, that tension, it's exactly what the villain wants. They don't have to lift a finger. You're already unraveling yourself. This isn't random, it's science. The amygdala kicks into overdrive when faced with ambiguity, pumping cortisol through your veins, priming you for fight or flight. But there's nothing to fight, no one to run from. just silence, stretching on, gnawing at your resolve. Villains understand this instinctively. They know that what you can't hear is more terrifying than what you can. It's why the footsteps you don't hear behind you send chills down your spine, why the unspoken threat lingers longer than the shouted one. They turn your own mind into their accomplice, letting your imagination do the heavy lifting. And while you're busy chasing ghosts, they're already 3 steps ahead, plotting in the quiet corners you've ignored. This is the essence of their power. They don't just control the battlefield, they control you without ever raising their voice. Now, let's widen the lens. Villains aren't always caped figures in dark lairs. They're the people next to you, the ones you'd never suspect. The colleague who says nothing while sabotaging your work, the partner whose cold distance cuts deeper than words ever could. What ties them together isn't evil for evil's sake. It's a calculated mastery of human weakness. They don't waste energy on theatrics. They save it for the kill. And this isn't new. History's greatest minds have dissected this art for centuries, turning it into a playbook that still rules today. 2 of them stand above the rest: Sun Tzu and Machiavelli. These aren't just names to throw around. They're the architects of silent evil, the blueprints behind every villain who's ever outsmarted you. Sun Tzu mastered war without battle. He didn't storm castles or lead screaming charges. He broke empires with patience, with deception, with the kind of silence that makes enemies surrender before the fight even begins. His words echo through time. The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. That's the villain's creed. Why clash when you can collapse someone from the inside? Centuries later, Machiavelli took it further, ruling through unseen strings. He didn't need armies. He had minds, bending them with whispers, half-truths, and the quiet promise of power or ruin. Men are so simple, he wrote, and so ready to obey present necessities. He saw humanity as a chessboard, and he played it in silence, pulling levers no one else could see. Together, they form a deadly duo. One a strategist of war's quiet victories, the other a puppeteer of human frailty. But why does this matter to you? Because you felt it. The sting of being outmaneuvered. The shock of realizing too late that silence was the signal you missed. Maybe it was a deal that slipped through your fingers, a trust you gave too freely, a moment you didn't see the knife until it was in your back. Villains don't announce their moves, they let you walk into them. And that's what we're here to unpack. How evil uses silence as a scalpel, cutting through your defenses while you're distracted by the noise. This isn't about fear, it's about understanding. It's about peering into the abyss of the villain's mind and coming out sharper, stronger, ready to spot the next quiet threat, or wield it yourself. Sun Tzu and Machiavelli didn't just write theories, they mapped the psychology of domination. Sun Tzu's silence is a battlefield where anticipation becomes the enemy's downfall. Machiavelli's is a court where trust becomes a trap. They knew that power isn't loud, it's subtle, insidious, creeping into the cracks of your awareness. And the villains who follow their lead? They're all around you, thriving in the quiet moments you overlook. The colleague who listens more than they speak, the friend whose pause feels heavier than their words. Those are the ones to watch. Because silence isn't empty, it's loaded, a coiled spring waiting to snap. This is where the dark psychology of villains begins. Not in the chaos of battle, but in the stillness that precedes it. It's not about who can scream the loudest, it's about who can stay quiet the longest, letting your own mind betray you. And that's what we're diving into today. How these masters of silence and manipulation outsmart you, step by unseen step. You'll see their tactics laid bare, their strategies exposed, and their secrets turned into tools you can use. Because knowledge is power, and power in the right hands is formidable. First, the art of war, Sun Tzu's silent blade. If silence is the villain's sharpest tool, then Sun Tzu is the master who forged it. His core principle slices through the noise of conventional warfare. All warfare is based on deception. This isn't about brute force or clanging steel, it's about the dagger hidden in the quiet, the strike you never hear until it's too late. Sun Tzu didn't craft the art of war for the bombastic generals who charge in with trumpets blaring. He wrote it for the minds that dismantle their foes without ever breaking a sweat. Villains live by this rule. They don't waste time shouting their plans. They bury them in silence, letting deception unfold like a slow poison. It's not about chaos, it's about control, and Sun Tzu perfected the blueprint for wielding it with chilling precision. Deception doesn't need a megaphone, it thrives in the stillness. Think back to a moment when someone got the better of you, not with a loud argument or an obvious move, but with something so subtle you didn't catch it until the damage was done. That's Sun Tzu's domain, the battlefield of the mind, where silence becomes a cloak for the dagger. One of his most lethal tactics is appear weak when you are strong. Villains don't flaunt their power, they feign vulnerability to draw you in. Picture the con artist, eyes glistening with fake tears, voice trembling with a sob story about a lost job or a sick child. You feel the tug of sympathy, lower your defenses, maybe even hand over cash or trust, and then they're gone, richer for your pity. That's Sun Tzu at work. Hide your strength behind a mask of weakness. Let your prey walk right into the trap. It's silent, it's deliberate, and it's devastating. This isn't some abstract philosophy. It's a strategy villains deploy every day, scaled to fit any stage. In the office, a coworker doesn't challenge you head-on. They play the novice, asking for your help, seeming uncertain, all while quietly sowing doubt about your competence with higher-ups. You don't hear the whispers in the break room, don't notice the emails you're left off, until you're sidelined without a fight. That's Sun Tzu's silent dagger. Power concealed in humility, victory snatched from underestimation. He understood that the loudest threats are the easiest to dodge. Yell, and people brace themselves. Stay quiet, and they stumble into your hands. Villains don't need to prove their dominance. They let you prove their point by falling for the ruse. Then there's the pinnacle of his craft. Win without fighting. This is where Sun Tzu's silence turns truly sinister. Why exhaust yourself in a showdown when you can break someone without ever raising a fist? Villains undermine silently, spreading rumors, biding their time, steering you into mistakes with misdirection. They don't need to clash. They erode your foundation until you collapse on your own. Imagine a warlord facing a superior force. Instead of meeting them head-on, he plants whispers of dissent among their ranks, stages a retreat that looks like defeat, and watches as their overconfidence leads them into a slaughter. Genghis Khan mastered this. He'd feign flight, leaving camps abandoned, luring enemies into narrow passes where his horsemen waited, silent and deadly. The pursuit became their undoing, and he didn't fire a shot until they were already broken. This isn't locked in history. It's alive today. Picture a modern CEO facing a rival company. They leak a rumor of financial trouble, scale back public moves, let the competition gloat and overextend, then swoop in with a buyout when the stock tanks. No press conference, no bold threats, just a quiet unraveling of their opponent's empire. Sun Tzu knew that fighting is the last resort. The real win comes when your enemy hands you the crown without realizing it. Villains don't crave the spotlight, they crave the outcome, and silence delivers it on a platter. They let patience sharpen their edge, let misdirection muddy your vision, and let you tire yourself out chasing the wrong fight. The psychology here is brutal. Silence amplifies uncertainty, and uncertainty is the villain's playground. When you don't know what's next, your mind races, foes crumble imagining the unseen. Sun Tzu didn't just target bodies, he targeted wills. He knew that silence isn't neutral, it's a pressure cooker. Think about a time you waited for something, a response, a decision, a sign, and the quiet drove you mad. Your brain can't stand the void. It fills it with possibilities, most of them worse than reality. That's the amygdala firing, the fear center pumping stress hormones, turning every pause into a phantom threat. Did they forget you? Are they plotting? Sun Tzu leaned into this. Let your enemy overestimate your moves, let them burn out chasing shadows, and they'll hand you victory without a struggle. Villains exploit this daily. Silence isn't passive, it's a predator stalking your doubt. History backs this up with blood. Genghis Khan didn't just conquer with numbers, he conquered with cunning. Facing a fortified city, he'd send riders to scatter, feign a panicked retreat, even abandon supplies to sell the illusion of defeat. His enemies, drunk on pride, would pour out to chase, stretching thin, racing into valleys where his archers crouched, silent as death. The traps sprang when they were too far to retreat, and the Mongols won not by fighting harder, but by fighting smarter. Today, a tech mogul might mirror this. A fake product delay leaked to the press, competitors rush to fill the gap, overinvest, and then the real launch crushes them. Silence isn't surrender, it's a signal, and Sun Tzu made it lethal. Zoom in closer. This plays out in your life too. Ever had someone sidestep you with nothing but a pause? A friend who fades out, leaving you guessing while they quietly turn your circle against you. Or a boss who stays mum on your work, letting you scramble for approval, only to claim your success later. Sun Tzu's tactics aren't just for warlords, they're for the everyday villains who outsmart you without a word. He knew that noise is weakness. Silence is strength. The less you say, the more they fear, and the more they fear, the faster they fall. It's a game of patience, of letting your enemy's mind do the work, and villains have been winning it ever since. This is dark psychology distilled. Silence isn't just a tactic, it's a mind bender. Sun Tzu didn't need to rally troops with speeches, he let his enemies rally themselves into ruin. His villains don't waste energy, they wield it, striking when you're too distracted by the quiet to see the noose tighten. And the brilliance? You think silence means peace, safety, nothing, when really, it's everything. It's the calm before obliteration. And Sun Tzu wrote the rulebook. Pause. Ever been fooled by silence? Comment below. That moment when the quiet hit harder than words. It's Sun Tzu's legacy, alive in every villain who's ever outplayed you. Now Machiavelli flips the board. If Sun Tzu's silence is a blade honed for war, Machiavelli's is a venom that seeps through the cracks of trust. His core principle cuts to the bone of human nature. Men are so simple. It's a brutal truth. People are predictable, gullible, driven by wants and fears so basic a child could map them. Where Sun Tzu deceives with patience, Machiavelli exploits with precision, and he doesn't need force to do it. Forget the clash of armies or the roar of battle cries. Machiavelli's villains wield silence like a scalpel, slicing through loyalty and doubt without ever breaking the quiet. This isn't about overpowering you, it's about outsmarting you, turning your own simplicity into their strength. Sun Tzu won without fighting, but Machiavelli wins without you even knowing there's a fight. His silence isn't a waiting game, it's an active strike, a calculated move to bend your world while you're still smiling at the surface. One of his darkest tactics is the end justifies the means. For him, morality is a luxury, a chain villains can't afford. Betrayal doesn't need a loud declaration, it thrives in whispers. Picture a friend who's always there, nodding along, asking just the right questions, until one day your secrets are whispered in someone else's ear. Your plans undone by a sabotage so subtle you can't trace it back. That's Machiavelli's craft. No confrontation, no mess, just a quiet unraveling of everything you thought was solid. He didn't care about being right, he cared about winning, and silence was his delivery system. This plays out everywhere. In a workplace, it's the colleague who never argues, never pushes, just listens, waits, then drops a casual hint to the boss that twists your reputation. You don't hear the conversation, don't see the knife until you're passed over, wondering what went wrong. That's the beauty of it. Machiavelli's villains don't need to shout their betrayal. They let it simmer in the background, a poison you drink without tasting. Sun Tzu might lure you into a trap, but Machiavelli makes you build it yourself, handing him the tools with a smile. His silence isn't passive, it's predatory, a shadow that moves while you're distracted by the light. Then there's his other gem. Be feared, not loved. Sun Tzu used silence to confuse. Machiavelli uses it to intimidate. Loud threats fade, yell at someone, and they'll push back or tune you out. But a quiet menace? That lingers. Imagine a cold stare across a table, no words, just eyes that bore into you, shifting the power without a sound. That's Machiavelli's game. Fear doesn't need volume, it needs presence. A villain who screams is desperate. One who stares, unblinking, owns the room. Think of the boss who never raises their voice but leaves you dreading their next glance, or the rival whose silence makes you question every move. It's not about being liked, it's about being unforgettable. And Machiavelli knew silence carves that mark deeper than any shout. History drips with his influence. Take the Renaissance, where the Borgia family turned intrigue into an art form. Cesare Borgia didn't storm cities, he poisoned cups, spread rumors, and watched rivals crumble from the inside. Whispers of arsenic in a banquet, a rival duke's sudden illness, No proof, no noise, just results. The silence wasn't accidental, it was the plan. Fast forward to today, a politician leaks dirt on an opponent, not with a press release but a quiet tip to a journalist, a subtle nudge that snowballs into scandal. No fingerprints, no fanfare, just a career in ruins. Machiavelli didn't invent betrayal, he perfected it, wrapping it in a quiet that makes it unstoppable. The psychology here is insidious. Manipulation rewires perception. Silent gaslighting bends reality without you noticing. Ever had someone deny a promise they made, leaving you questioning your memory? Or drop a hint so vague you fill in the blanks with your own guilt? That's Machiavelli's legacy. Silence as a mirror, reflecting your doubts back at you until you're lost in a maze of your own making. It's not about what they say, it's about what they don't. Your brain scrambles to interpret the quiet, and every wrong guess tightens their grip. Sun Tzu's silence makes you fear the unknown. Machiavelli's makes you doubt the known, turning trust into a weapon they wield against you. This isn't abstract. It's personal. You felt it. The sting of a friend who drifts away, not with a fight, but with a slow, silent shift you can't pin down. Maybe they stop answering, stop showing up, and you're left wondering what you did, while they've already moved on, taking your confidence with them. Or the partner whose quiet resentment builds, a wall of unsaid words that chokes the air until you're apologizing for things you didn't do. That's Machiavelli's handiwork. No loud accusations, just a stillness that twists your reality. He knew people are simple, they crave approval, fear rejection, and he turned that simplicity into a lever. Pull it quietly, and they'll bend without knowing why. Contrast this with Sun Tzu, where Sun Tzu's silence is a long game. Patient, strategic, a chessboard played over months. Machiavelli's is immediate, opportunistic, a knife slipped between ribs in a single breath. Sun Tzu waits for you to overextend. Machiavelli strikes when you're closest. Sun Tzu deceives with misdirection, letting you chase shadows. Machiavelli manipulates with proximity, letting you lean in just far enough to fall. Both use silence, but Sun Tzu builds a trap you walk into, while Machiavelli hands you the rope and watches you hang yourself. Sun Tzu's villain is the distant general. Machiavelli's is the friend at your table, smiling as the poison takes hold. This hits home in modern life. A corporate villain doesn't fire you. They sideline you. A quiet reassignment here, a missed invite there, until you're irrelevant, without a word of conflict. A social manipulator doesn't call you out, they freeze you out, letting the group drift away while you scramble to catch up. Machiavelli's silence isn't about hiding, it's about controlling, shaping what you see, what you feel, without ever tipping their hand. He knew that force breeds resistance, but silence breeds compliance. You don't fight what you don't hear, you adjust to it, and that's where he wins. The psychology ties it together. Manipulation doesn't need a stage, it needs a vacuum. Silent gaslighting doesn't argue, it erases. A villain might say nothing when you expect a defense, leaving you to question your own story. Or they might agree too easily, a nod that plants a seed of doubt. Did you misjudge them? Your perception shifts, not because they pushed, but because they didn't. Machiavelli understood this. Simplicity is vulnerability, and silence exploits it. He didn't need to break you. He let you break yourself, one quiet moment at a time. This is dark psychology at its peak. Silence as a tool of domination, trust as a trap. Machiavelli didn't just play the game, he rewrote it, turning human nature into his canvas. His villains don't roar, they whisper, and that whisper echoes louder than any scream. What happens when these masters collide? Sun Tzu and Machiavelli, two titans of silence, centuries apart, yet bound by a shared truth. Evil outsmarts in silence. They don't clash like thunder. They meld like shadows, each amplifying the other's darkness. Their synergy is chilling. Both wield silence as a weapon, but they aim it differently. Sun Tzu plans your fall with the patience of a predator stalking prey across a season, laying traps you won't see until the ground gives way. Machiavelli smiles as you trip, his silence a mask for the quick, cold shove that sends you over the edge. Together they form a perfect storm of villainy. One sets the stage, the other delivers the curtain call. It's not about noise or force, it's about control, and they've mastered it in ways that echo through every quiet betrayal you've ever faced. Let's peel back the layers. Sun Tzu's silence is a long game, a chessboard stretched across months or years. He's the strategist who waits, who deceives with stillness, who lets you exhaust yourself chasing phantoms while he positions his pieces. His all warfare is based on deception, isn't a sprint, it's a marathon of misdirection. He feigns weakness, retreats just enough to lure you forward, then strikes when you're overextended, too tired to fight back. Machiavelli, though, doesn't have time for that. His silence is immediate, opportunistic, a dagger slipped between ribs in a single breath. Men are so simple, he says, and he proves it by exploiting your trust right where you stand. Where Sun Tzu builds a trap, Machiavelli hands you the rope and watches you tie the noose. Sun Tzu's villain is the distant general plotting your ruin. Machiavelli's is the friend at your side, grinning as the poison takes hold. This isn't just a philosophical dance, it's a clash of approach. Sun Tzu's patience is his strength. He'll let you think you've won, let you celebrate, let you lower your guard, then dismantle you when you're drunk on false victory. Think of a warlord who fakes a retreat, leaving supplies behind, knowing you'll chase the bait into an ambush. That's his world. Silence as a slow burn, a fuse you don't see until it's lit. Machiavelli's opportunism is his edge. He doesn't wait for the perfect moment. He makes it, striking when you're vulnerable, when you're close enough to feel his breath. Picture a courtier who nods at your plans, then whispers a half-truth to the king, turning your allies against you overnight. Sun Tzu plays the long con. Machiavelli plays the quick kill. Both win, but one buries you with time, the other with timing. Their synergy comes alive in how they overlap. Sun Tzu plans your fall with silence, deception that keeps you guessing, keeps you moving, keeps you blind to the real threat. Machiavelli smiles as you trip, manipulation that twists your stumble into a plunge, using your own momentum against you. Sun Tzu sets the conditions, a feigned weakness here, a rumor there, a pause that unravels your confidence. Machiavelli seals the deal, a quiet word, a subtle push, a betrayal you don't clock until it's done. Together, they're unstoppable. Sun Tzu primes the battlefield, Machiavelli delivers the finishing blow. It's a 1-2 punch of silent evil. One makes you doubt, the other makes you fall, and neither needs to raise their voice to do it. Now let's bring this into today's world. Picture a tech mogul, a modern villain blending Sun Tzu's strategy with Machiavelli's cunning. They're facing a rival startup, a hotshot company stealing their thunder. Step 1. Sun Tzu's feigned retreat. They leak a story, maybe a product delay, a dip in stock price, a hint of internal chaos. Analysts panic, investors pull back, the rival smells blood and overextends, rushing out a counterproduct, doubling down on hype. The mogul stays silent, letting the market churn, letting the rival stretch thin. That's Sun Tzu, appear weak when strong, win without fighting. Then, Machiavelli steps in. The mogul attends a gala, all charm and smiles, cozying up to the rival's key investors. A quiet lunch here, a subtle jab there. They're overpromising, aren't they? And suddenly funding dries up. No loud accusations, no public feud, just a smile that crushes dissent. The rival collapses, and the mogul's stock soars. Silence planned the fall. Silence sealed it. This isn't fiction, it's reality. You've seen it in smaller stakes. The coworker who plays dumb to steal your idea, then charms the boss into giving them credit. Or the friend who fades out, letting you chase their approval, only to turn your circle against you with a few well-placed words. Sun Tzu's long-game patience sets the trap, weeks of quiet, letting you dig your hole. Machiavelli's quick opportunism springs it. A single conversation, a single pause that flips the script. Together they outsmart you in silence, and you don't hear the gears turning until the machine's already crushed you. It's not about who's loudest, it's about who's sharpest, and these two wrote the playbook. But here's the flip side. Evil outsmarts in silence, but you can hear it coming now. Sun Tzu and Machiavelli aren't just lessons in villainy, they're warnings. Sun Tzu's silence telegraphs itself if you watch for it. The retreat that's too convenient, the weakness that doesn't add up. Machiavelli's shows in the cracks, the smile that doesn't reach the eyes, the quiet that feels too heavy. They've given you the map. Every pause, every omission, every moment they don't speak is a signal. You've been outsmarted before, by the colleague who said nothing while they climbed, by the friend whose silence hid a knife. Not anymore. This isn't about fear, it's about foresight. You can spot the trap before it springs, see the smile before it stabs. And there's more. You can use it. Sun Tzu's patience can be yours. Wait out the loud mouths, let them tire, then strike when they're weak. Machiavelli's opportunism can be your edge. Turn a moment of trust into your win, not theirs. They outsmart in silence, but so can you. The tech mogul isn't the only one who can play this game. Imagine flipping it on the villains in your life. The coworker plotting your fall? Feed them a false lead, let them chase it, then take the prize. The friend drifting away? Stay quiet, let them overplay their hand, then reclaim your ground. Evil's playbook isn't exclusive. You've got the keys now, and that's power. This clash isn't just history, it's your reality. Sun Tzu and Machiavelli don't just explain the villains around you, they arm you against them. Their silence is a weapon, but it's one you can wield too. Evil outsmarts in silence, but you can hear it coming now, and that's the difference between being prey and being predator. Here's your edge. Sun Tzu and Machiavelli have laid it bare. Evil outsmarts in silence, but you're not blind to it anymore. This isn't just a glimpse into the villain's mind, it's a weapon you can wield. Start with this. Watch for silence. It's where evil hides. Trust deeds, not words. The loud threats, the big promises, they're smoke, easy to dodge. But the quiet? That's where the real danger coils. The coworker who stops talking, the friend who pulls back without a fight, the stranger whose pause feels heavier than their chatter. Those are the signals. Villains don't announce their moves, they let you stumble into them. You've felt it before. The sting of a betrayal you didn't hear coming, the loss you didn't see until it was done. Now you know where to look. Silence isn't peace. It's a warning, and you're sharp enough to hear it. But it's not just about spotting it, you can use it too. Master their game. Silence can be your strength. Sun Tzu waited out his enemies, letting them collapse under their own weight. Machiavelli turned trust into a trap with a single quiet push. Why can't you? Imagine the power in holding back, letting the loudmouths overplay their hand while you wait for the perfect strike. Picture the rival who underestimates you because you didn't boast, or the manipulator who leans in too close, never seeing your counter until it lands. Silence isn't weakness, it's a blade, and you can sharpen it just like they did. You don't need to scream to win, you need to outsmart, and that starts with keeping your cards close. They've shown you how evil thrives in the quiet. Now flip it, make it yours, and become the one they can't predict. This isn't the end, it's the beginning. You've cracked the code of silent evil, but there's more to uncover. Who's the silent villain in your life? Drop it below, I'm reading every comment. Maybe it's the friend who's drifted, leaving you guessing while they pull strings you can't see, or the boss whose quiet approval hides a plan to sideline you. Name them. Call it out. Let's shine a light on the shadows together. This is your chance to vent, to connect, to turn their game into our conversation. And if this hit you hard, subscribe for more dark psychology. We're just getting started. Next time, we expose your mind's deadliest flaws, the weaknesses villains prey on, and how to armor up against them. You're not a victim anymore, you're a force, and this channel's here to keep you dangerous. Hit that button, leave your story, and let's keep unraveling the dark together.